This is Propulsion, the podcast where we dive deep into the nitty-gritty of taking your business and your practice to the next level. Whether you are an entrepreneur, a franchisee, or a financial planning pro, you are in the right place. We're talking the latest tech, best practices, and expert insights, all while keeping it real and entertaining. So grab a coffee, sit back, and let's get ready to blast off. I'm your host, Francois de Toy. Gareth, what's going on with me?
Good morning, Francois. Good morning, listeners. Thank you very much for having me on my show, on your show. Also going on with me. It's my show this morning. So
I love it. Thanks so much, Gareth. This is going to be a fun one this morning. I'm looking forward. There's some incredible stuff that we need to talk about, and I'm glad we've got a bit more time than usual to actually do that. But before we get going, I mean, one of the things, like, it's amazing to see how well Gareth looks. He's got a young baby still, so it's been a period now for 5 months. So Gareth,
5
looking
weeks.
good.
5 weeks.
5 weeks. Oh my word. I thought it was 5 months. You see. Oh, wow. Even better, man. That's up on you.
Yeah.
But tell us a little bit about yourself, Gareth, just like who you are, where you're from, and then we'll get into the deets.
Thanks, Francois. Yes, so obviously new father, very proud of that. So in fact, interestingly enough, today is my first year wedding anniversary too. So that's also quite new, I guess, in the scheme of things. My name's Gareth Hopkins. I am a director at the Fire Group, and more specifically Firestorm Technology. I have been operating in Firestorm for the last 15 years. We started and are still very much focused in the financial services sector. It makes up a very large portion of our client base. We built this practice or this technology and this business from the ground up. Literally, it started as most things do, where we built it it was built by an advisor for his practice and expanded out. So anyway, I won't kind of focus too much on the product, but yeah, sales and operations and support. As you know, you kind of multifunction when you are an entrepreneur. And we've been working with FSPs for the better part of 15 years now. So excited to continue, bringing value to the market, excited to continue innovating and learning. Learning is the key. You think you know everything until you don't.
Yeah, exactly. Until you get punched in the face, as David.
That's it. Correct.
So one of the big things as well, when we think about the technology side of things, often as technology companies or technology providers or developers of technology, I know, like, you've got a long list of feature requests and people want all sorts of weird and wonderful things, until you ask them also, like, what are they going to do with it once they have it? That's also a different story, but that's not the point. I know that tech providers tend to, like, we want to build this and want to make it more robust, and we want to have, like, feature reach and all of these kinds of things. We want to put more tech in. Yeah. And I think financial advisors and planners are probably in a point where they just want to do less tech. Because so they want to use less systems. They don't want more systems, though at the moment, like, that is probably the landscape, but they want to take it out. Now, you have a very interesting background in the sense that you've been on the business side of things and you're also on the technology side of things. Can you maybe just share a little bit about, how do those two worlds intersect, and how do you think, do you think differently about technology when you are talking to a business and somebody who's just focused on the tech and they want somebody to buy their tech? Is there a bit of a different approach there?
So you mentioned something so poignant that we see every day, which is feature requests. Feature requests come in all day, every day. And I always, tongue in cheek, if any of my clients are listening, I always say, so are you going to pay for that feature request? Are you going to pay for that dev? And obviously, I'm joking, but the idea is that, everyone that people panic. People find a need, or they at least find a small need. Something's happened once. I need to do this. I need to do that, and they hone in and then they ask you for that feature. And the problem is that on the tech side, on the dev side, our side, you can get caught up very quickly, losing your direction and building things that are maybe useful for one client or one instance in one client's journey. And I'll tell you that for free. We've got features in our system that have probably been used once or twice and never used again. Not a lot, but that's the nature of the beast. And when you're chasing it, you want to say yes to everyone. No one likes to say no. No one, wants to tell a client no. So you get caught up. But I think the key is to just stop and consider. You in development, you've got a roadmap and you've got processes that you need to follow to make sure that you are adding value, not only technically, but obviously to what the product is trying to solve. So it's the hardest job in the world, determining what's important and what's not important. And I think the biggest key in that area is to just take a breath and go slow, and I guess that goes for all businesses, for whatever it is. You've got to make sure that you understand what it is that you are being asked, what it is that you are wanting to build, or going to build, should you build it, and how you're going to move forward from there. So yeah, it's a tricky one. I want to say yes to everyone, but or else you're going to have this platform that is just so convoluted, and you'll never get it off the ground.
Yeah, and as you say, I think that plays directly into business, because we say yes to clients. They are also sharing feature requests with us in business, in financial planning and advice and servicing and all these things that we do. We also get feature requests. We just don't realize it. And before you know it, you're running around like a headless chicken trying to please everyone, which is a bit of a problem. So let's get into value propositions, because that's really at the heart of this. So on the one hand, there's value propositions. On the other hand, there's the technology and sort of how these two actually play together, and then how we can go about. So I'm really keen, like I said in the intro, there's, I think like many things in business, everybody's got their own idea of what a value proposition is. It took me quite a while to formulate something for myself to try and say, well, that's what a value proposition is. But I'm quite keen just to start with, in your view, like, how do you articulate value proposition for business, and why is it crucial for them?
Absolutely, this is spot on, and very often overlooked. If I could say that, we all are creatures of habit, and we do because we've always done, and we're not necessarily purposeful. So let me say this. The value proposition, as I have always understood, and from the research I've done and the learning that I've done, etc., is your value proposition is your promise to your clients. Okay, your promise of value. Why are you going to pick me? Okay, the value proposition is ultimately the reason a client chooses you over the next person, advisor, whatever it may be. Okay. So this value proposition is the reason people choose you over someone else. Okay. Your unique differentiator. Now, what we always purport in our business, or businesses within the FIRE group, but also when we are consulting, to our technology clients, this should drive your purpose. Okay. Your value proposition may be nice and broad and diverse and dynamic and whatnot, but if it's not driving your purpose, it's a waste. It's a waste of time, it's a waste of effort, and potentially resources. So define your purpose. We in the FIRE group believe that there is one single purpose for a business. Okay. And that is the creation and retention of clients. A single purpose, creation and retention of clients. Now, everyone might say, or a lot of people might say, no, it's money, no, it's meaning, it's purpose, it's blah, blah, blah. That's measurement. Okay. Measurement of your purpose is how much money you have, how many houses you have, how many clients you have, how much market share, whatever your measurement is that suits you, how many smiles you get per day. That's measurement. Purpose creation and retention of clients. Okay, if you're a business. Otherwise, you're a non-profit and you're not a non-profit, but say that tongue in cheek. So the idea is that driving your purpose, everything you do all day, every day needs to drive that purpose. Okay. To make sure that you are delivering, you need to clearly define your value proposition. Okay. Now, all of us in the financial services sector will have heard from many years, segment your client base, determine what you do for who. The idea is that comes from a very important place. Value proposition, we cannot give everyone the same. Okay. We should give everyone the same level of service, but not the same amount of service. Okay. So we all know when we walk onto a plane, if we're sitting in first class, business class, or economy class, it's differing levels of service. It's not because I'm less important or more important. It's because it's what I've chosen and what I'm doing. So define your value proposition, define your segment, okay, or segments, and then deliver on that. All right. It sounds simple. And obviously, if we had more time, I'd open that up. But essentially, what you need to do is you need to be able to define that, target and identify that, and then deliver. And that's what we're talking about today is delivery and delivery systems.
Yeah, and it is quite because I think that's the hard part is that a lot of people know, this is what I should be doing until you sit down with that blank piece of paper, and then you feel like, oh, okay, so now what's happening? Like, I don't even know where to start. Am I even on the right track? So, I mean, are there maybe some tips around, how I can practically just, if I decide, because for me, it's like, I think back to when I started Propulsion, which was called something completely different in the beginning. But when I started this back 2014, the thing came up the other day. So we're 10 years that we've been going now. It's like absolutely mind-blowing to think
Amazing.
about that. Yeah, it's crazy. Because it only feels like yesterday. That's the problem. But
Beautiful.
when I started, like I literally started off saying like, what do I? It's almost like start with what you have, where you are.
Sure.
That kind of approach. And I just thought like, my natural thing would be to work in the financial planning profession. The big question for me was, what would I do? Because I could deliver advice to clients, which I was doing at that point in time, and I didn't enjoy any second of it, simply because there was too much emotion involved for me. And then on the other hand, I was thinking like, okay, so I know I do that. What do I have? I have knowledge, I have skills, I've got those kinds of things, and I've got a very unique love of things. So almost like the ikigai thing of where everything comes together. But I was just thinking like, I love business, I love education, I love technology a lot, and I love content creation. So what can I do where these four things are at play all the time? Maybe not all at once, but they are always part of the equation. And that eventually became what we're doing today. But I was clear, like I know I understand financial advice and plans. I was in their shoes. I worked alongside them for a very long time. So that was sort of my beginning. But if you're there and you're starting off new, or even like I always like these things are amazing for me. Like you could be brand new in financial planning, or you could have been here for 20 years. The beauty is you can decide to do things differently today and change things around. So the question I've got then, how do I know then what's the starting point for my value proposition? Because all I had was who I wanted to work with and sort of the kind of things I wanted to do, but I did not have a value proposition at that point in time. So I don't know. If there any thoughts on that and ideas?
100%. So it's going to sound so simple and almost ridiculous, but the starting point is to ask. Okay, very, very often, more often than not, businesses don't ask their market what they want. We all talk about research, we talk about delivering value, etc. I think one of the things that resonated, Francois, if I may, when we chatted with, that resonated with you is our, what we called our 3 pillars of a successful relationship. And to get to that, we had to do the research. I sat, and I'll talk about myself now in my business. I sat in the early days, in the late 2000s, in shopping malls, okay, at golf courses, whatever it was, wherever I could get an event or a table or whatever the case is. And I asked people walking by, what do you want? Now, I was building something for financial advisors. So I said to them, for example, if we were your financial advisor, what would you want from us? Okay. Because what we wanted to do was we wanted to build a platform or a tool that was going to facilitate what FAs needed to do for their customers. So we needed to know what FA customers wanted from FAs. Okay. And then we were going to go and build that. So to kind of draw it back is to say, ask your customer, right? Yes, of course, when you're starting out, let's just take the insurance or the investment game or whatever in the financial services. You're starting out on the basics, right? You're selling insurance, you're selling RAs, you're selling whatever you're selling. But as you refine and define, you go further. But the only way you can do that is ask. So you learn what you like to do. So I don't want to sell insurance, I only want to sell investment. Or I don't want to sell product, I only want to sell advice. Whatever it may be, that's fine. But eventually you're going to define your target market. And this is another critical thing that my mentor tells me regularly. Not everyone is your target market. Okay. That is, and we none of us like to none of us. Yes, it can. It might not be used as well, but the idea is that not everyone's a target market. So don't chase everyone. So define your target market, define your value proposition, and that's going to be defined by your target market. Who are they? What do they want? Okay. If you look at the billboards of the I find that I am the target market of the pineapple insurance. I don't have that product and it's not a plug, by the way, but I like their marketing because it's funny, because it appeals to me. They've defined their target market. Those people who've given up dating apps for running apps, or whatever the case, it resonates. The people who dialed in for ADSL and it went, and they've written that out there on bloody Hyde Park. And it's fun. It's funny. So they've defined it. They're not trying to reach my parents and they're not trying to reach the Gen Zs. They're trying to reach that market. So define it, ask them what they want, and then deliver that to them.
At the heart of all of that is the ask. Like, that's the big thing that I always also say to people, like, have you asked? I had somebody message me in the week, say, I've got this idea. So he's into some other stuff. And he said, I've got this idea and I want to train people on this and this and this, because then they can sort out their own problems. And I said, well, it's a great idea, but have you actually asked these people if that is what they do? Do they actually want to solve their own problems? Because if they don't, you're just wasting a lot of time and effort.
Exactly.
So it's one of the big lessons, because we built a lot of stuff just on hunch or on what I thought was cool, and then it went absolutely nowhere. Recently, again, to be fair,
but there's nothing wrong with that. That's learning as well.
Yeah.
You got to also take a chance. Build something, do it, and you got to have some sort of so there's nothing wrong with that. But ask. If you don't ask, you're going to keep going in the wrong direction.
Yeah, absolutely. And so let's then talk about technology as a business delivery platform, because that for me is at the heart of everything as well. So technology is a tool, it's an enabler. It's how I define it. So it is not the value proposition, in my opinion. But I'm quite interested to hear, where do you see technology fit now into this equation? So let's just say that I've got my value proposition. I'm very clear on my purpose. I know what I'm trying to achieve, and how am I going to do this? What am I going to do in this process of creating and keeping clients? Where does technology then fit in?
100%. So again, I'm going to go, I'm going to obviously, as your English teacher says, write about what you know. So I'm going to, talk to my space and my experience. And we believe we've built a delivery system, and it's not so much about it's more about why and how. So the reason we built what we built was because calculations and projections and all of that jazz, which is very powerful tool and very powerful tools and systems, are there, and they do what they do. Okay, delivery is unique to your value proposition. So in our learnings, as I mentioned, sitting in malls and all of that jazz, we found out that relationships were key. Outside of or above everything: product performance, administrative efficiency, trustworthiness, product options, price, commission, all of that jazz. Relationships are number one. And David hit the nail on the head earlier when he said communicate. Okay. The client is a relationship is being able to comfort your client when something goes wrong. You can't stop what's going to go wrong. The markets happen. Okay, things happen, whatever it may be out of our control. Your relationship and your value prop means that I'm communicating regularly, or whatever it may be, the comfort in knowing that that person's there to have your back. Okay, that's the key. Whether it's investments or insurance or whatever it may be. Okay. So for us, we needed to say, how are we going to deliver that? And how are we going to facilitate technology delivering value prop? And we came up with our 3 pillars of a successful relationship. Pillar number 1 is know your client. Okay. So you've got target market, you've got value prop, etc. This is the process, right? Know your client. Who are they? What do they want? Why do they want it? Okay. In order to do that, you have to engage. Engaging is calling, meeting, emailing, SMSing, communicating. It's engaging. Okay. It's contacting, it's engaging. We all know if you can't have a relationship without communication. Okay. So engagement and communication. In that engagement and communication, you learn your client, you learn what they want, what they need. That's going to drive and inform what you give them, your value proposition, your delivery, right? So you need an engagement platform. Okay, a platform to reach out, not only to reach out one way, but to receive responses and to record those responses and then use that data, okay, to filter and search and subsequently deliver, which brings me on to pillar number 2, which is be relevant. Okay, so know your client, number 1. Number 2, be relevant. You can only be relevant if you know your client, all right? You can't be relevant if you are shooting from the hip, shotgun spray, sending the same message to 5,000 people who are differing in age and whatever it may be. So you need to be relevant. Is it a business owner? Is it a parent? Is it a retiree? Whatever it may be. I'm using generic examples, but relevance is critical to personalization, customization, and you use your learnings from engagement to be able to be relevant. But again, you need a platform. You need an information management platform. Okay, so you need to be able to capture the learnings, the data, etc., on your system, on a system. Okay, because with that, you will then be able to be relevant, target the right audience at the right time with the right information. We always talk about say the right thing at the right time, or reach the right people with the right information at the right time. Okay, so that's relevance. Excuse me. And finally, we move on to value. Now, value is obviously, objective or subjective at least. And that's really up to the person who's creating and obviously the person who's buying. So value is a mix of your skill, your knowledge, and all of those good things, and how well you put that together and package it and deliver. Okay. So delivery is taking everything that you do, that you've learned, and giving it, essentially, allowing the customer to consume it. Whether it's proactive, whether it's reactive, it doesn't matter. As long as the customer knows they are happy. Guy Holwell at the Global Financial Planning Summit recently, talked about it's all about client experience and expectations and assumptions. Expectations and assumptions are one of the most dangerous killers of a relationship. Okay, so if you remove all, or at least create expectation, but at least have control over that expectation. Okay, what do you expect from me? I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. If I do it, I've delivered. If I don't do it, I haven't delivered. It's when we say we expect this, we expect that, we assume you would have done that. That's a problem, and that becomes very dangerous. So our pillars: know your client, be relevant, add value, and your technology is your engagement, again, in that place, engagement platform, information management platform, and delivery platform. Okay. None of that had a product. None of that had a calculation. None of that had a, anything like that. It was engagement, and it's relationship driven.
So talking about, you're building this business of value. You have a lot of information in your systems, however, in whatever way you do that. I'm sort of keen to talk a little bit about business continuity. And one of the other things you said, well, it's, the purpose of business is to create clients, but also to retain clients. So, how can businesses then ensure continuity? Because I think you get two types of business people, right? Maybe more, but roughly you will fall into one of two camps. Either you want to die at your desk and the business must die with you, or you want something that lives beyond yourself. So you built that business in two very different ways, depending on your view and sort of what you want this to do. Some people have no need for the business to continue, and other people would love for this thing to become even bigger after they've gone. So how can businesses ensure business ensure continuity, and also client retention through the use of technology?
So again, in the context of technology, that is one area. It's a large area because your technology, as specifically the technology that we are talking about this morning, that retains your business information, your client's information, your relationship information. So that's core. There are other things to business continuity outside of your technology, but essentially business continuity is the ability for your business to continue operating or delivering basic services in the face of an emergency or something that is unexpected, loss of a staff, natural disaster, hardware infrastructure goes down, etc. So the idea is that at least at a minimum, you can pick up and you check your information. Okay, if your laptop's stolen, that stuff needs to be off-site. If your staff member leaves, you need to have what's in their head and what's happened between them and their customer relationships in the platform. So it's all of these things to say business continuity. We talk about a thing called knowledge management. That's the retention of all information and knowledge into a place that supersedes the people. Okay, so you hit the nail on the head. I want to eventually be a person that steps away or maybe not sells my business, but the idea is that you can sell a business and it can continue without the owner, or the founder, or whatever it may be. So you need to be able to make sure that it's got that continuity, despite who is there, what is there. That knowledge and that information facilitates that. A specific example in the financial services sector, something as we all know, called re-intermediation, when a client moves from one advisor to the next. And this is just a very simple example. A client moves from one advisor to the next. What are we giving them? Okay, is it a name and a number and go forth and multiply? Or is it an entire history of that client's relationship and transactions and communications and documents and everything?
Yeah. Business continuity is actually a multifaceted thing, right? It's not only about exiting or that. There's so many other things that you mentioned. And obviously, there's a lot of value in having all of the information in a central place, because that's the power of it. And we're not even talking now about other benefits to the business, because now we need a whole episode for that as well. But I've got a couple of quick fire questions for you, Gareth, seeing that it's Firestorm. I thought quick fire questions would be appropriate today. So I want to sort of just very quick, as quickly as you can answer these. Maybe
Sure.
just quickly, are there any particular technology trends that you are seeing that we need to be aware of in financial services?
So there's two parts to that. So there's the first part is I have noticed over the last few years, the trend has been moving away from crunching to relationshiping, if I could say that. So people have realized I need to run a business and not a production factory, So that's a big one, which is beautiful for us and frankly philosophically as well as commercially. So F&A is great, investment tools great, all of that's great, but the client doesn't see, they see the output of that. That's a great thing. You need your relationshiping, your business continuity stuff. So we've seen that. Then we've seen, as always, we see buzzwords and hot topics, etc. The two biggest buzzwords of late, and I guess, call it of late in the last couple of years and year, AI, obviously, and automation. AI, AI is making its way through. It's a tricky one, not a tricky one. It's an interesting one, but it's something that needs to be used within the existing knowledge set, skill set, value proposition. You can't just, this robo and all of that jazz. AI is great. I tell you what, I use a thing called Read AI. It takes minutes of the meeting that I have. It summarizes it. It creates action points. It does a whole range of things. Okay. Again, that's not going to run my business, but it's a portion, so it's complementing. So AI is fantastic. I spoke to a client the other day. They did an example of an estate plan. They wrote the entire this was into ChatGPT. They wrote the entire estate plan breakdown prompt, if you will. Do this for this customer. This is what they have. This is the thing. This is the tax bracket. This is the country they're in. They've got businesses. Da da da. And it spat out pretty much the exact plan that particular individual would have created themselves. However, the client can't prompt that because they don't know what to prompt. So you still need the advisor. So AI is one, and that's going to filter in as we move forward. Automation, also critical. I think it was David who mentioned things in the background need to happen, but we need to be wary of automation, guys. We need to be very wary of automation. Automation, Bill Gates' most famous, or for me, most famous quote. Any type of automation introduced into an inefficient operation will magnify its inefficiencies. However, introduced into efficient operation will magnify its efficiencies. So be careful, because not that you don't know, but you forget. Okay, you send an automated birthday message to someone you shouldn't have. You send a meeting request or something to, I was booked an appointment with someone the other day, and their system didn't sync with their calendar. They missed my appointment. So that was an automated process. That person didn't phone me, make the appointment, and have it kind of in their head. It was just so these things are good, but we just have to take care. So AI, automation, those are some trends that we're seeing come out in the business, in the industry.
Yeah. Cool stuff. Right. So I'm out of time to ask more quick fire.
I'm sorry, man.
No worries. But those are very, very insightful. And it's interesting on that note of automation. Let me share this. So when we booked the session, our system is automated to now remind people when we haven't received certain information from them by a particular point in time. And the first time the automation went out, I get a copy of it. So I sent Gareth a message. I said to him, Gareth, ignore this. I've got your stuff. No worries. And meanwhile, back at the ranch, I never got Gareth's stuff. So Gareth thought he sent me his stuff. I thought I got it. And the automation was actually working well, although we thought it didn't.
So also understanding it and its potential shortfalls is critical as well.
Yeah,
but we're here in the end, so it worked out well.
Brilliant. Gareth, thank you very much. An insightful conversation. If you want to, there's a link down below where you can connect with Gareth on LinkedIn. So you can find him there and learn more about what it is that they do. And also just, build relationships, connect with Gareth, and he'll be really keen to connect with you as well. So Gareth, on that note, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Francois. Have a good day. Have a good weekend. Cheers, everyone. Bye.
Righty, so that's it for another fantastic episode. Thank you very much for joining us. There weren't many comments today, so I'm just going to highlight one of them. So Neil was saying, just like advisors cannot be everything to all clients, tech companies cannot be everything to all advisors, which most try to be, and in so doing, water their value proposition down. I think that's such a valuable comment and something that deeply resonates with me and that I deeply agree with as well. It's always about that. And going back to what David was saying earlier around, that one central idea. That's it. And there's some more stuff we'll talk about. But I'll be back next week with another topic. And I think I already know what that is going to be, because there's one critical aspect of anything in your business that we need to talk about, which I'll talk about next week. So keep an eye out. We'll announce that on the social platforms. But for now, have a fantastic weekend. Thank you for joining us. Really deeply appreciate it. Stay safe, be blessed, and prosper, and continue to raise the bar. Love you. Bye-bye. All right, folks, that's a wrap for this episode of Propulsion. I hope you got as much out of this as I did. Remember to tune in every Friday at 8 a.m. South African time for our live show called Propulsion Live. You can find it at www.propulsion.co.za/live. And trust me, you don't want to miss it. If you enjoyed this episode of the podcast, hit that subscribe button or the follow button and share it with your friends, colleagues, and anyone else who you think would get something out of it. Thanks for tuning in, and I'll catch you in the next one.